Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tackling well, something we all need to do, but often find surprisingly tricky, asking for help.
It sounds simple, doesn't it? But it's really not always.
Exactly. Our source today is actually an excerpt from a podcast script, one designed to teach English as a second language. Now, stay with us here, because looking at it through this kind of foundational lens, it reveals some really insightful stuff about how to ask for what you need effectively, whatever the situation.
It's interesting, right? Because by focusing on the basics for language learners, the source kind of strips away all the extra noise,
Yeah.
stuff we usually complicate it with.
Yeah.
It really makes you look at the fundamental building blocks of making a successful request.
Spot on. So our mission here is to take these seemingly simple bits, the vocabulary, the basic dialogue examples, and pull out the deeper strategies, the things that can empower you to ask for help with more confidence, more clarity in your own life.
Hmm.
The source kicks off with keywords like assistance, favor, support, request, and guidance. It gives definitions, examples,
Yeah.
but we want to dig a bit deeper than just that.
We do. Because think about it in your own experience. How often do you maybe hesitate? Or you ask, but don't quite get the response you hoped for?
Right.
Understanding these little nuances in language, in the approach, it can make a huge difference.
Okay, let's get into that foundational vocabulary then.
Yeah.
The source starts with assistance. Notes it's a more formal way to say help.
Yeah.
So instead of like a casual, hey, you need help,
Yeah.
you might go for, excuse me, I need some assistance, please.
Yeah.
What's the real advantage of picking that slightly more formal word?
Well, that little shift, that formality, it can signal a couple of things. It can show respect, for the other person's time, their expertise maybe, especially at work or if you're talking to someone in like a position of authority.
Okay, makes sense.
And it can also sort of underline that your need is, well, maybe a bit more serious.
Then we get favor. The example is, could you do me a favor and carry this box? That feels, I don't know, a bit more personal. What separates a favor from just help?
Good question. Favor usually implies maybe a more informal relationship. And it's often for a smaller thing, perhaps something a little outside the norm.
Right.
And there's often this like unspoken understanding of reciprocity too, the idea that you might return the favor down the line.
The give and take.
Okay.
Next is support, as in, my friends gave me a lot of support during my exams. This sounds like something bigger, more ongoing than just carrying a box.
Precisely. Support often brings in emotional encouragement, Sustained help, especially when things are tough, it really highlights the relationship aspect of needing help, trust, reliance.
Then there's request. Example, I sent a request for more information. Feels more official, process-driven.
Yeah, often a request implies there's a specific way to ask, maybe a certain channel or procedure. It definitely sets a more formal tone. Could be a form, an email, something to document it.
Gotcha. And the last one here is guidance. Like, I asked my teacher for guidance on my project. So this is specifically about needing direction.
Exactly. Guidance really emphasizes learning, development.
Hmm.
When you ask for guidance, you're not just looking for the answer, right? You're trying to understand the how or the why, the process.
Okay, so we've got these different shades of meaning. Now, the source gives us a little workplace dialogue to see some of this in action. A worker says to Julia, "Hi, Julia, could you help me with this report? I'm a bit stuck." What jumps out at you from that simple opening?
Well, it's direct, but it's still polite. Using could you always softens things a bit.
True.
And that phrase, I'm a bit stuck, that's key too. It's concise. Everyone knows that feeling, right? And it signals a clear need without sounding, overly negative or blaming anyone.
And Julia's reply, "No problem, let's go through it together." That offer to collaborate, rather than just fix it,
Yeah.
that seems important.
Oh, absolutely. It's not just, here's the answer. It's, let's figure this out. That's way more helpful long term because it helps the person learn, maybe prevents them getting stuck on the same thing next time.
Right. Then the worker clarifies, "I'm not sure how to organize the information." See? Specific problem makes it much easier for Julia to actually help.
Exactly. And Julia again says, no problem. Let's go through it together. Consistent, collaborative.
And this really underscores the value of being clear about where you're struggling. If you just say, "I need help with the report," where does the other person even start?
You got it. Vague requests. They often lead to vague answers or just unhelpful ones.
And the dialogue wraps up with the worker saying, "Thank you so much, I really appreciate it." That gratitude piece feels small, but crucial.
It really is. A genuine thank you, it acknowledges the other person's effort, their time. It makes them feel valued, more likely to help again in the future. It just strengthens that whole working relationship.
Okay, so the source then pulls out some effective phrases. We saw, could you help me with this report? And the thankful, I really appreciate it. What about some others like, excuse me, could you help me please? Or would you mind helping me with this? What are the slight differences there?
Well, excuse me, could you help me please? Is, super polite, great for approaching someone you don't know or someone who looks busy,
Mm,
standard, reliable.
right.
Would you mind helping me? That's maybe a touch softer, a bit more considerate, perhaps. It acknowledges you might be imposing, asking them to go out of their way.
Okay. And what about, can I ask you for a favor?
Ah, back to favor. That explicitly frames it as something maybe outside their usual duties, doesn't it? Again, it kind of hints at that reciprocity we talked about earlier.
Makes sense. And then there are ones like, I'm sorry to bother you, but I need some help. And could you show me how to do this?
Yeah, I'm sorry to bother you. Shows you're aware you might be interrupting. That can definitely make someone more receptive. And could you show me how to do this? Is great because it's specifically asking for instruction. It's about learning the skill, not just getting the immediate task done.
It really just drives home how much simple politeness oils the wheels of the whole interaction, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's fundamental. Politeness signals respect, consideration, and people are just much more willing to invest their time and energy when they feel respected.
The source also brings in some related terms. Problem, solution, stuck, advice, and volunteer. How do these fit into the bigger picture?
They're basically the landscape of the whole help-seeking situation, right?
Yeah.
You identify a problem, you feel stuck, so you seek advice, hoping for a solution. And sometimes a volunteer steps in, someone offering help freely.
Okay.
Understanding these terms just helps you, articulate your situation more clearly and understand the kind of responses or help you might get.
Right. So finally, the source wraps up with some key strategies for asking effectively. Number one, as we've kind of seen all along,
Mm.
be polite. Sounds basic, but
But it's the bedrock. Please, thank you, they go such a long way. Simple courtesies make a huge difference in getting that positive response.
second, be specific. We touched on this with the dialogue example. Explain exactly what you need help with.
Crucial. The clearer you are, the easier it is for someone to actually give you relevant, useful help. Avoid the vague, I'm struggling, if you can pin it down more.
Third, be patient. Remember, the person you're asking probably has their own stuff going on. They might be busy.
Yeah, definitely respect their time. Avoid acting demanding or like you're entitled to their help immediately. Patience is key.
Fourth strategy, and this one's interesting, offer help back. Kind of emphasize that reciprocal nature.
Yes. This builds that culture of mutual support we mentioned. It strengthens the relationship. It's not just about taking, it's about being willing to give back too. Makes the whole system work better.
And the final strategy is about mindset, really. Reframing asking for help not as weakness, but as strength.
Exactly. It takes guts to admit you don't know something or can't do it alone. Seeking help is often the smartest way to move forward, much better than just struggling by yourself. It shows self-awareness, a desire to learn. It's resourceful.
So putting it all together,
Mm-hmm.
we've kind of unpacked the essential vocabulary, looked at a real-world mini example, broken down useful phrases, considered the related terms, and highlighted these core strategies, all circling around this surprisingly complex skill of asking for help.
And the idea is if you start integrating these principles, being polite, specific, patient, reciprocal, and seeing it as strength, you can navigate all sorts of situations more effectively. You build stronger connections, you get unstuck faster, you reach your goals more easily. Clear, thoughtful requests really do pave the way for getting the solutions and support you need.
Okay, so for a final thought to leave you with, think about a time you held back from asking for help. Maybe it was pride, maybe uncertainty, maybe something else. What actually happened in the end? Now, considering what we've talked about today, the impact of specific words, the power of politeness, that idea of giving back, seeing it as being resourceful, how might approaching that same situation differently have changed the outcome?
Yeah, that's a good one to ponder.
Think about how asking for help proactively and, thoughtfully, how that could actually open up new possibilities for you, accelerate your learning, your growth, in ways maybe you hadn't even considered before.